All right, Eric Arnold here in the morning of the 15th of February. And what do we got here? We're going to talk about possibility of all-out, full-blown war involving us, the United States, not just our proxy, the Ukraine, fighting on our behalf. I'm saying, what if we get involved in it? Is that possible? Fani Willis in court today in the Atlanta lawfare case. Mass shooting at the Super Bowl. One quick point on her report. I did see that, before we get into all that, I did see that I believe Fox News is reporting that, remember how President Pudding got all upset because Beau Biden was mentioned in the report. How dare they? They took away my pudding. I wasn't. Come on, man. I wasn't done. All that type of thing. And I told you, of course, they didn't ask him about his dead son. The president, brought it up. And of course, I'm right, because that's the only thing that makes sense. That, some low-level Rapachik DOJ lawyer is going to ask Mr. Angry President about his dead son. Of course you're not going to ask that. And that's what's being reported now. The sources almost certainly are coming from the special counsel's team. Now, I want to mention one thing on this special counsel's team. This idea that he's a Republican, that the Democrats are throwing that out there. I guess if you're stupid enough to believe that, well, then you're pretty dumb, because it's laughable. He might be registered as a Republican, just like Robert Mueller was. He's a deep state operative, just like all the lawyers in the Justice Department are. These guys are all Marxists, every last one of them. The idea that this guy, even if he was some kind of independent hero, where his boss is a Marxist, his boss's boss is a Marxist, his boss's 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 boss is a Marxist, that they're not going to control what he's doing, that he's going to be able to just operate with autonomy without those guys jumping in and controlling what he's doing. It's laughable. The reason that report is written as critically as it is because there are people within the Democrat Party that want to get rid of Biden, i.e. the Obamas, i.e. probably anybody that looks at this guy and goes, Jesus Christ, could we sneak this cadaver past the American public? This angry old man who doesn't know what day it is? That's a pretty heavy lift. I don't know if we can do it. Maybe we would better serve by putting a fresh Marxist out there instead of this guy. So clearly, and I would say it's the Obamas that are pulling the string. And they're the ones that are leaking this to Fox News about what was actually asked in these interviews of the president. That the president himself, as I told you, brought up his dead son because it's his favorite topic. I mean, he loves to bring that out at any point in time when he's in trouble. Yeah, did you know my son died heroically in Iraq? That fighting for the nation's freedom? Now I don't even think it was that good. I think it was probably something more along the lines of he thinks he's charging up San Juan Hill with Theodore Jefferson, fighting the Brazilians. There's no telling what this guy actually said. They asked for the transcript, the Republicans in Congress, that, hey, we want to see what was actually said in this interview so we could, basically show the world that this was about as bad as we think it is, which I think it was probably pretty bad. And I don't know you're going to get to see that they're just going to disappear that or clean it up or do whatever. But I don't think you're ever going to actually see the questions and the answers. Probably on videotape. It's probably on videotape. That's something you're certainly not going to see, is 5 hours of this guy going, when was I vice president? I don't know, the World's Fair was in 1904 because they invented ice cream. And I remember that I like ice cream. And, I think after that was William Howard Taft. And you could fit 4 people in his bathtub. Did you know that? 4 people would fit in his bathtub. There's no telling, hey, Grandpa Simpson, come on, man. Yell at clouds. I'm sick of hearing words like horny. Yeah. So, yeah. I told you so. I told you so. That, and this just confirms my suspicion as to how he even got out there to do that press conference to begin with, is that the Obama people are starting to push back within the Biden White House. Valerie Jarrett, Susan Rice, they're starting to try to submarine Jill Biden and force her to give up the ghost. She controls Mumbles. She controls that moron. So if she, convinces, even there, that might be a problem. I mean, he could turn on her. Yeah. What, Mommy? Are you saying I can't take a dump before dinner? What? I always take a dump in my pants before dinner. What? Now you're saying I can't? Who do you think you are? It could, all those people that have dealt with people, our elders losing their mind, very difficult when you're trying to talk sense to them. So, tough. You know what? Tough. The Bidens are disgusting people, and I have no sympathy whatsoever for them. All right, war. Let's talk that. Why? Because Jane Catterson wants to talk about war. So, is she right to be concerned? I don't know. I mean, part of me is almost putting that one aside, saying, geez, I got 99 things to worry about. Is this really one of them? I kind of felt like we were winning the argument. In other words, the people that are against this damn thing are growing. That when it started, it was only Rand Paul, Ron Paul, Tucker Carlson, myself. That's about it. 75% of the country was, let's stick it to Russia. Let's send them money. Let's send the Ukraine tanks and airplanes and nukes and whatever else we got laying around. Absolutely. So now 2 years later, and they're nowhere close to shutting this thing down. I would think we've sent, and there's no way to tell because the government lies without embarrassment. I would say it's been $500 billion, which is a lot of money for a bankrupt country. It's a lot of money for a rich country. Where does it end when we have all these problems in our own country? So now a majority of the Republican Party is against this war. The Democrats, the Democrat politicians, the Democrat oligarchs, they're all for it. Now, I would argue that the Democrat voters are probably 60-40 for it. Even Democrat voters are starting to go, what's this about now? Why do I care about this? Why is this important? You're telling me I need to care. What do I give a damn about what goes on half a world away? And they're right. So I'm thinking we're on our way to winning this argument, that without the support of the people, it's hard for these guys to do much. Now, when has that ever stopped them before? I've said many times, the goal of the Democrat Party is to wreck this country. Why? Because if the country is left in a smoking ruin, it's much easier than to rebuild it as a totalitarian hellhole than it is if the thing isn't broken. So you got to break it before you can put it back together as a dictatorship. Everything's good over here in this country. Everything's great. Well, then it's hard to tell the people, hey, you will love me as a dictator. You will love you some communism. You need it. You want it. Well, I think things are going pretty good. Well, it's kind of like the 30s. A lot of government control was exerted over a lot of countries in the world because of the Great Depression. People were starving to death. Literally starving to death. And they threw themselves at the feet of their rulers, of their oligarchs, saying, save us, save us. And they said, okay, you asked for it. And you got a lot of government dictatorships, tyranny, Germany, the obvious example. In this country, we ended up with government controls over things the government never controlled before. And people loved it. They loved it. The president was elected overwhelmingly. The people loved them some dictatorship. They love to be told what to do. I fear, when times are bad. This is my fear. So, the long way of saying, having a war might be one of the ways you could wreck this country and do it relatively quickly. Would they get away with it? That's the question. Like I said, if they said, we're declaring war on Russia tomorrow, you'd have riots in the streets, I think. I don't think people would stand for that. They wouldn't believe it. They wouldn't buy it. It's like, wait a minute, we're going to war with Russia? Why? Over this Ukrainian crap? Russia, for the most part right now, has, I don't know, it's stabilized as far as where they're at in the Ukraine. I think they've taken the territory they want to take. They've consolidated it, put up fences, if you will. The Ukrainians can throw themselves at the Russian defenses till the cow comes home, and all they're going to do is kill themselves if they haven't already. We're running out of Ukrainians to fight, where, right now it feels like, the idea that the oligarchs have is that, hey, we're just going to fight to the last Ukrainian. We're almost there. And at that point, then what happens? Now, what I thought would happen is that these guys would just throw up their hands and go, oh, all right, we give up. I mean, we gave it the old college try, and we really made Vladimir work hard, and he had to expend a lot of treasure and Russian lives to get what he got. So it was a win. Plus, we were able to scam a whole bunch of money out of this deal for ourselves. So win, it's a win. Let's call it a win and, call it a day. That's what I was thinking they were going to do. Jane wants me to believe otherwise, that they've got something else in their back pocket. Maybe. I mean, the way you would do it, I guess, is with some massive false flag, which everybody, that part I don't think anyone would disbelieve. In other words, if suddenly, let's say that mass shooting in Kansas City, let's say it wasn't a bunch of gangbangers just on some God knows beef over whatever drug deal went bad. Let's say it was a bunch of Russian operatives that just decided they're going to kill as many people in Kansas City on the 14th of February as they could. Would you believe it? Would you say, oh my goodness, this is a terrorist attack organized by the Russians, and we've got to go to full-blown war with them over there in the Ukraine? I don't think I'd believe it. Joe Biden could stand there and mumble out whatever nonsense he would mumble out, they probably wouldn't even send him out. They'd send out one of their other flacks to do the talking and tell me that this is why we got to go to war, because of some terrorist attack foisted out by the Russians. I don't know you're going to get the majority of people to believe it. What if they just did it anyway? That's what you're saying? You don't need the people to believe it? You'll just do it anyway? I don't know. I mean, they still have an election in November. What if they cancel it? Will they be able to really? That they're just going to declare, that's a tough one. I mean, we've always held elections. We held an election during a civil war. We held elections during world wars. To be able for them to just say we're not doing it, I don't think they'd be able to get away with that. What does that mean? They won't be able to get away with it. Basically, it means that the people are just going to say that's enough, and they'll grab whatever guns they have, and at that point, they'll put a stop to it. That their local politicians will not be safe. The people are sick of it, and violence will break out, and that'll put an end to the war. It's hard to, how to say this, prosecute a war half a world away when a civil war is breaking out inside your own borders, i.e. Russia and World War I. That's when Russia pulled out of World War I because it was falling all apart inside their own country, by design, of course. Not more like a revolution, I guess. I guess that's what it was called, a revolution, rather than a revolution then followed by a civil war. You could have the same thing if these guys try to take on Russia without popular opinion backing them. And I don't think they are anywhere near being able to sell us. It would have to be some kind of massive psyop, false flag to convince us all that Russia has some kind of designs on overrunning Europe or Alaska or the Astrodome or whatever. Because I just don't think people believe it. They look at the Russians and they go, I don't know. I mean, Alexander Ovechkin's chasing Wayne Gretzky's records. He's Russian. We like him. All of a sudden we hate all Russians? I just don't think people believe it. It's just not believable. Not saying they wouldn't try it. I mean, I guess they could try it. It is a little bit scary in that, you have two things here that could happen. One is we let Putin have what he's got. To hear him tell it, he'd be happy with that. If we just said, all right, take what you got. We'll work a deal here. The rest of Ukraine stays neutral. You swear in a stack of Bibles to never do it again. Have a nice day. That's the obvious solution. Ultimately, I think that is the solution that will happen. Just because the other solution is a nightmare. It's Armageddon. The other solution is all-out war with Russia. He's not going to give up that territory voluntarily. At this point, I'm not sure we could make him give it up. If we lined up our best of our best, whatever divisions that is, whatever the best war planes we have, and jets and tanks and what have you, I'm not sure we'd win. I think we might just throw ourselves against the Russian defenses just like the Ukrainians are and just slaughter ourselves and have a lot of dead Americans as well as embarrass the hell out of the country because I don't know that we're capable of beating the Russians at this point in a conventional war. And then, of course, if you have a conventional war with the Russians, what that means then is at any point in time, if one gets the better of the other, kind of like a arm wrestling contest, if one starts to lose, he has the, what's the word I'm looking for? The capability. I don't want to say the right. He has the capability of turning over the table, of just reaching across the table and go, bam, here's a nuke right in the face. Here's a nuke. Do you really think that Vladimir Putin would just sit there if we were able to roll him up and shove him backwards, shove him into his own country, like some of these morons like Lindsey Graham, who sits there and talks about regime change? And you listen to that and you say, this is not a serious person. A regime change? Like Vladimir Putin's going to sit there and let us tie a noose around his neck. Like he's going to just allow that to happen. No, I mean, the guy's going to go nuclear. Whatever that means, whether it be battlefield nukes or he'll drop one on London or something just to get a point across. And the same thing would happen in the other way. In other words, if suddenly, we're getting run out of town and they're on their way to Poland or Germany, at that point, we would probably go nuclear too, just to say, hey, whoa, I know that, we kind of asked for this, but now, this is getting out of hand, and we have to, just remind you that maybe our conventional forces are kind of woke and weak and suck, but we do still have some nukes that work. That's probably what would happen. So just an all-out war with Russia would be unthinkable. And you would say only a madman would want to do it, but the garbage elites that run this country, I keep using this word, these oligarchs, which is funny because when you say oligarch, you automatically think of Russians. I think it's more along the lines right now of Americans. These the Zuckerbergs, the Bezos, Bill Gates, Warren Buffett. These are the people that control this country. They're oligarchs. And none of them seem to have our best interests at heart, the people. So, like I said, you want to wreck this country? You want to tear it up fast so you can rebuild it as your perfect utopia, totalitarian society? Hey, let's go to war. I just don't know if they get away with it. That's a big gamble. And they're winning right now. They're incrementally winning. They certainly are. If they just stay the path they're on, they'll probably within 50 to 100 years achieve their goals of destroying the country and rebuilding a utopian hellhole, which will be utopia for them and a hellhole for anyone that doesn't have $10 million. If they want to try to speed that up for whatever reason, that's a gamble. That's a gamble. They might lose. They might lose the whole damn thing. If the people get too pissed off, they might just overthrow the rulers and then they lose. So that's where I don't know. It's almost unthinkable, and that's why I guess I just don't bother to think about it. That I don't know they're organized, Jane Catterson. I don't know they're organized enough to pull something like that off, to try to go ahead and execute a false flag PSYOP operation to try to get the vast majority of people on board in this country with a full-blown American boots on the ground war with Russia over in the Ukraine. I don't think it's something they could pull off. I don't think they're good enough to do it. So I try not to think about that. Now, what else is there? This lawfare case in Atlanta, Fani Willis, evidentiary hearing today, whether she's going to get booted off the case. It's hard to say what's going on there or what's going to happen. Even if she's kicked off the case, some other person might pick it up and prosecute it. In a way, I almost don't see how that's possible, though. To me, then, what that would mean is that some Republican, like the state attorney general or the governor, would have to step in and screw Trump and say, okay, well, we're going to keep this case going. Now that the Fulton County DA's office has been disqualified, we're going to get someone else to do it. You know, now it's like, wait a minute. I know you guys are no fans of Trump, but you're actively going to screw the most popular Republican in America? Oh, man, talk about, you know, a political move. You know, that's where I'm kind of thinking, if they get knocked off the case, the whole case might collapse. I think what'll happen is they'll be punished in some fashion, but they'll be allowed to keep the case going. But they'll be damaged politically. And this is a political trial. Nothing else matters but the politics, the optics of this trial. So, and the more Fani speaks, the more unpopular her side becomes, because she's a racist. It's just obvious. I get mixed feelings, you know. I almost want them to stay on the case. Just let them keep going, because I think every time Fani talks, she helps Trump. But on the other hand, it would be safest is this whole case just went away. Just there, done, over. What else you got? I think that's basically all we got here. I've shot this video so many times I've lost track of where we are. I think I had something else. We talked about the Her report. Oh, this mass shooting, of course. You know, I guess I've forgotten about it, just like the mass media, the Democrat media's probably already forgot about it because the wrong people did the shooting. I glanced at the internet. I listened to some stories from ESPN and ABC News, and they told you nothing, which tells you everything. In other words, well, I don't know. I've seen some still photos of guys in handcuffs, and they all look like, you know, inner city gangbangers. So I'm kind of guessing that this was an inner city gangbanger shootout between who the hell knows and who the hell knows why. A drug deal gone bad. Inner city crime just mystifies me. The whole thing just mystifies me. It's almost like it just makes no sense, none of it. Where it's like, well, it's because they deal drugs. Well, what's that have to do with anything? You're dealing drugs, you're exchanging a commodity for money. You're selling something. We sell things all the time in this country. Wood, we sell lumber, we sell houses, we sell services, we sell a service to cut your grass. All sorts of money changes hands in this country all the time. But the only place people get shot is in the inner city. It's like, can you people not simply do business without shooting each other? What is wrong with you? Are you just have no self-control at all? Are you just stupid as hell? What is wrong with you? It's a business deal, for God's sakes. Why do you have to shoot people? How is that a legitimate business tactic? It makes no sense. Then the fact that the people that live there that aren't criminals put up with it. I've never understood that. If in my little neck of the woods here, all of a sudden, you know, we had a murder or two murders, that type of thing, the people would get together and they'd say, we're not putting up with this. We're not living in this type of a neighborhood where we got to worry about this. We're putting an end to this right now. And we would get our checkbooks out and we would pay the local police department or the township and say, look, you hire whoever you got to police the streets, but we're done with this. And we'd organize neighborhood watches. We do all that stuff to get the scumbags out of here, to move them the hell out of here. Never happens in the inner city, ever, ever. They just put up with it. They just, oh, there's nothing I can do. No, there's nothing you want to do. And it bothers me in that I don't understand it. But then, as one of my friends said to me, well, what do you care? You don't go there. You don't live there. Let them do whatever they want to do down there. It's like, well, I guess. But then you have something like this happens. In other words, this is a celebration for the whole region, not just inner city Kansas City, not just in the hood in Kansas City. It's a celebration for the whole region, and then these guys pull this. I know what I would do if I was the owner of the Chiefs. I'd go to the governor's office and I'd say, I demand those people be put to justice immediately. I demand a death sentence for all those guys. Do what you got to do, but they've committed terrorist acts, and I'm sure you've got some capital sentencings that you can give these guys and give it to them fast. I mean, how fast did they put what's his name to death when he blew up the Murrah building in Oklahoma City? Timothy McVeigh, that asshole. They put him to death pretty quickly as far as those things go. That's what should happen to these assholes. They should be tried, charged with capital crimes, tried, found guilty, obviously, and then, that's what should happen to these bastards, and see if that sends a message to any of these other inner city thugs. Probably won't, but, I don't know how these guys explain away, hey, yeah, I just, I was dissed, and I wasn't going to stand for that, so I just whooped out my 9 and emptied the clip. It just happened we were in the biggest party in the last year and a half in Kansas City, and there's 1 million people that were in the way of my bullets. But what? You expect me to take things like that into account when I'm in the middle of protecting my rep? No, that's not how we roll. So, no. Maybe the civilized people in this country should make a statement and say, no, that's not how we roll. Hey, I believe in free speech. I'm Eric Arnold. We'll talk again.